Hey to my friendliest friends, this is Snailer Mood, and today, with all the recent controversy at the Met Gala with Kim Kardashian wearing Marilyn Monroe's Happy Birthday, Mr. President dress, I wanted to weigh in with a different take, a take that angles more on Marilyn's life and exploitation, her continued exploitation. So quickly, let's just talk briefly about the dress. This dress was custom made for Marilyn to be sewn into with no undergarments, no shapewear. It was a second skin made of a material marquisette that was dyed to match her skin exactly. And she was just meant to look like she was dripping in rhinestones. Like I said, this was a second skin with Marilyn's essence embedded into it. And it's a side note that it's not the Smithsonian's fault so much that they sold the dress. They have to come up with their own funding. That's what the Met Gala is actually for. And it makes sense that if they have a very expensive piece, maybe they want to sell that and fund a bunch of smaller future projects. So that's how Ripley's Believe It or Not ended up with the dress to begin with. And I quite like Ripley's Believe It or Not. I think they're fun. I do want to know what the world's largest hairball is. It's 225 pounds, by the way, and his name is Haas. I do want to know who has the longest fingernails, and that is Anaya Williams. And she sold them after she cut them off recently to Ripley's for $47,000. That's insane. I want to know these things. I don't want them to have one of the most historically relevant dresses of one of the most exploited women of her time, though. That brings me to my point. Marilyn Monroe is probably the most exploited person, public figure that we have ever really seen. But that's neither here nor there. It is what it is. I just don't believe that people who are recording world's largest hairballs are also thinking about preserving the integrity of a historical dress. I think they're more worried about a viral moment. Without getting too far ahead of ourselves, let's start at the very beginning. Marilyn Monroe was born Norma Jean Baker, or Mortensen. She was baptized Baker on June 1st, 1926 in Los Angeles. And she was given up almost immediately at about 2 weeks old to an orphanage by her mother, who was suffering from mental health issues and needed to not be caring for a child. Fair enough. So she ended up in a bunch of foster families after the orphanage, and she was sexually abused in some of these, very sadly. And she eventually escaped by marrying a 21-year-old when she was just barely 16. He was shipped off to the South Pacific for the military just after their marriage, and this is where her story begins. She began working in a factory, just sewing together parachutes, when a brochure photographer discovered her and could see something in her, and that gave her the spark. She began modeling shortly after, and she was doing this under the name Jean Adair, but when 20th Century Fox picked her up, they collaborated together on the name Marilyn Monroe. Marilyn coming from Marilyn Miller, who sadly also died at a very young age. She was a Broadway actress, and Norma Jean insisted that they use Monroe as her last name, as it was her mother's maiden name. So in 1946, Norma Jean publicly began going by the name Marilyn Monroe, and this is where she launched. Marilyn was a curated invention, an alter ego, as an attempt to escape her turbulent early life, as well as a way to showcase her talents as a model, a singer, and actress. But Norma Jean was playing a role playing Marilyn Monroe, and then Marilyn Monroe was acting on top of that. And I think this disconnect from herself, Marilyn, Norma Jean, she only just wanted to be loved. And by the time she was getting all that love and adoration, she was unrecognizable from her former self. And I think that, mixed with her predisposition to mental illness, really kind of started wearing down on her. And that's why she was having issues showing up to set, and she gained a reputation for being a little bit difficult to work with just because I don't think she was mentally well. And all the things that she was battling kept her from doing her absolute best in her work. It was like a double-edged sword. On one hand, she could escape her humble beginnings and create a glamorous life for herself, but at the same time, she was still just a shy young girl trapped in the body of a star now, still not getting that recognition for Norma Jean that she needed, only getting recognized for Marilyn. And it was very sad that this girl who made a name for herself was still being exploited. She just wanted to be loved and seen after a childhood where she was repeatedly discarded, and when she finally made it, she was no longer recognizable as that same girl. Still not loved for who she was, just appreciated for what she could do for men. How men like Hugh Hefner could stand on the back of Marilyn to their benefit, launching their own careers while Marilyn suffered. When launching the first publication of Playboy, Hugh asked Marilyn to model for him, and she refused, knowing that it could damage her career. She was trying to be taken more seriously at this point. So he reached out to a former photographer of hers, and Hugh paid him for photographs that Marilyn had never intended to be released. She had signed over the release for these photographs to the photographer under the name Mona Monroe and told the photographer that these should never come back to haunt her. One could argue that without Hugh Hefner stealing these photos, his magazine would have been nothing and we would not know his name. She received absolutely no pay from the magazine sales, only the original $50 that she got from signing over the release for these photos. She was also paid significantly less than both her male and female co-stars. She brought in 1/10 of Jane Russell's salary in Gentlemen Prefer Blondes. And it seemed that everybody who came in contact with Marilyn benefited from Marilyn more than Marilyn did. Even her husband seemed to see her as little more than arm candy. Joe DiMaggio beat her black and blue when he was jealous that he witnessed a crowd of men ogling her during a performance of the filming of the subway grate scene in The 7-Year Itch. He wanted a demure housewife and expected Marilyn to comply, even though she had obvious dreams and ambitions. This led to their divorce, and he began stalking her and even accidentally broke into the neighbor's home by accident, thinking it was Marilyn's. Her third husband, playwright Arthur Miller, on the other hand, took a more passive-aggressive approach. He wrote nasty, resentful things in his private journal and left it out and open for her to find. He did help her to be seen a bit more seriously because he himself was a serious author. But when his short story The Misfits was adapted to screen, he rewrote angles of her character to better fit his idea of Monroe, such as making her a high school dropout instead of the original educated woman that Rosalind was written to be. And on the filming of The Misfits, John Huston, the director, gambled away a huge sum of money, even though United Artists had set aside money specifically for gambling. He went way over budget, and in order to distract from everything that was happening there, delays in production because of money problems, they put Marilyn in, they sent Marilyn to rehab for drug problems as a distraction. She was scapegoated once again. And even in death, Marilyn wouldn't get any respect. In fact, I would argue that Hollywood's greatest wishes came true when Marilyn died, sadly enough. Finally, this complicated, messy, mentally ill woman who was contrasted by extreme intelligence and a love for philosophy and poetry and art and philanthropy could just be flattened into nothing more than sex, which is what Hollywood always wanted of her. After she passed, she settled her estate and left a bit of money to her assistant's child's education fund, to remaining family, and what was left of it, she died with about $800,000 as her net worth. $370,000 of that going to Lee Strasberg, her dear friend and acting coach. And he also received 75% of her intellectual rights, meaning her name and her image. So how is it that Lee Strasberg's third wife, Anna, came to be in possession? A woman that never met Marilyn, now in control of her estate. Well, when Lee died, he left everything Marilyn entrusted to him to his third wife, Anna. And Anna, in turn, made quick money piecing apart her collection, selling off everything she could of Marilyn's. Her wardrobe, her nighties, her slightly sweat-stained shoes, crumbling makeup compacts, family heirlooms, and even Marilyn's temporary driver's license. And that was just her physical property. Her intellectual property was licensed everywhere. Anna is estimated to have made tens of millions off of Marilyn, 20 to 30 million off the sale of Marilyn's name and image alone when Anna sold her 75% intellectual rights, making Marilyn everybody's cash cow but her own. Everybody benefited off Marilyn except Marilyn. My goal with this video is simply to empathize with Marilyn. We see so much of her image and so little of her life. Consider liking and following for more dark Hollywood deep dives, and have the best day.